How's it, Rob? Today we're going to be talking about the weight of the shirt. And I don't mean the physical weight, I'm talking about the badge on the shirt. So, to get us started with a trivia question, we are going to talk about the actual physical weight of the shirt for a second. And I want you to tell me, what do you think in grams is the average weight of a Premier League shirt? And I will give you a little bit of leeway here. I'll give you a 50-gram leeway in each direction. So, for example, if it was 200 grams, your range would be between 150 and 250 is your range. It is above 200 grams. I'll just give you that tip. It is about 200 grams.
Good thing. So I was going to go 60 grams. Um, no, so, okay, well, I'm just thinking about it has to be fairly light, it's got to be breathable. That's the big thing. So I'll go with 350.
Oh, you are on the cusp there. It's 400 grams. So you're in. You're literally in you're in by 1 gram, literally, which is incredible. Rob's still alive.
Rob in trivia. I'm on.
Yeah, you're still alive. That's really funny. Moving on from there and pulling it back to the more metaphorical topic of the weight of the shirt. My question for today is, which team or which shirt in world football has the most weight to it?
Oh, that's a goodie. I like that a lot. Right. So I'm going to scrap Chelsea. I'm going to scrap Man City. I'm also going to scrap Arsenal because I think those three teams in Arsenal and Chelsea for different reasons. They're both oil clubs. There's not the history and tradition there that you get with some of the big clubs. Arsenal mostly because of Champions League. To be honest, I think that's the big thing. So there's a lot more leeway given to their managers and given to their players for Arsenal. Um, Now, in terms of the big boys, you gotta start off with the main ones for the foreign leagues. I'll probably go with Boston, Madrid. If I had to pick one, I'm going Madrid. Bayern Munich, PSG, doesn't matter. No one cares about those leagues, let's be honest. Um, then Premier League, you've got Liverpool and Man United are probably the two big ones. Out of all of those three, I'm probably going to say Real Madrid. I'm probably going to go on Real Madrid here. And the reason isn't just because of how successful the team is and how impressive they are on the field and how the expectations are really high. It's also because the Spanish media are ridiculously harsh. Like, because there's such a high expectation, when we talk about English media, and English media are also culpable for this. But the thing for me is I look at players like Gareth Bale and, we spoke about him recently, and his record at Real Madrid is outrageous. If he had that record at any other club in the world, he'd be considered a club legend. But he's not in Madrid. Like, he's not considered one of the proper club legends. And that's why I think the weight of the shirt is probably the biggest in Real Madrid.
I'm sad that you already went through the whole process of eliminating all the teams. But ultimately, where I had landed was it's between Manchester United and Real Madrid. To me, those are the two clubs of world football that the shirt weighs the heaviest. As you've put it there, logically, Real Madrid, from a success standpoint, is the team with the heaviest shirt. But I'm actually going to argue that I think currently the shirt in Manchester United is much heavier from the perspective of the lack of success they've had pretty much since Ferguson left. There's been little trophies here and there. But for the most part, they've underperformed every season. And my point is, I'm thinking about it from the eyes of a new player coming into either Manchester United or Real Madrid. You come in and you're expected to deliver instantly if you're coming to both clubs, but particularly if you're coming to Manchester United, because they haven't done anything in a number of years. And on top of having to perform straight away, you're surrounded by, to be honest, quite a mediocre team around you, where when you go to Real Madrid, you're expected to perform, but at least you've got the likes of Vinicius Jr. and all of these quality players around you. That really helps. And if I compare that to the Manchester United under Ferguson, where there was pressure, obviously, like the weight of the shirt, but then you were surrounded by Rooney and Tevez and Ronaldo, like, to support you. It's a lot. There was always that. I can't remember who told it. This one of the old Manchester United players telling the story of, you give like a dreadful pass to say a Rooney, he would turn it into a good pass, and suddenly you get the assist and you look like a hero. That's not a thing in Manchester United anymore. So I wouldn't say the expectations are as high, but they're as immediate, the expectations, and you don't have that team around you to help you achieve those goals.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but I've got a question for you, Josh. I'm going to turn this on its head. And my question for you is, in terms of the weight, would you say it's worse to be a player or a manager at Man United currently?
It should be a player, but the answer is manager. Somehow, all that scrutiny is particularly turned on to the manager at Manchester United. The players have got away with it for basically a decade at this point. Since Ferguson left, the players have put in some stinkers, and season in, season out, I actually don't want to take credit for this. This was a point that you made, so I don't want to take the credit for it, but it's a great point, and I would be amiss not to bring this up. You made this point to me in private that every time the Man U manager gets sacked, suddenly there's this huge upturn with the exact same players in performance, and it's costing the managers their job. And that's a player issue, not a manager issue. So I'll let you kind of elaborate and explain that in your own words. But for me, it's currently the managers is getting the brunt of it when it should be the players.
Yeah, in terms of that point, that is the point I was going to make, which was it's a situation we watch these players fail on numerous occasions for numerous managers at the end of the day. And I'm talking about players who've been there for years, like your Marcus Rashfords, Fernandez has been there for a number of years as well. And there's players who've cycled through. Luke Shaw is another one who's been there since Mourinho and who's cycled through all these managers. And they, again, you saw under Ruud van Nistelrooy, and a boatload of media Man United fans are going, oh, why don't we just keep Ruud van Nistelrooy because he did so well? And it's like, hang on, this is what's happened every single time you've sacked a player, sacked a manager, and then the players come back in. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when he came in, they had an immediate bounce back. Same thing happens every single time. And I'm not sure if it's a situation of the players are looking for a manager who will just let them run the team, or if it's just a situation they don't like the system. These players, these managers are coming in and they're not running a system that the players can get behind. But either way, you have to get to a point where you start to look at these players and go, hang on, this is now the third manager that has been sacked off the back of your performances. There has to be a common denominator at some point. But the other thing I was going to say when I brought up the difference between managers and players is that I'm actually going to give, when I go back, I'm going to give us like a second answer here, because I think with Real Madrid, it's a lot more pressure to be a player. And I think managers, not that there's no pressure, and I'm not going to say that at all, but it's one of those where you go in as a player and you're expected to perform on field immediately, because the managers there are generally successful. They always win at least one or two trophies every single year. They're generally successful. And it's a situation where, as a player, you're expected, like you said, to come in and be the big boy on campus, but you've got the players around you to do that. Whereas as a manager in Man United, it feels like there's a similar expectation. There's a similar expectation that they need to be winning a trophy every single year. But not just winning a trophy. It's like you need to win the League Cup and then challenge for the Premier League title as well. Like, you can't do one or the other. It has to be both. And Paul Scholes said it recently, which was basically, I don't care about League Cup and FA Cups. I care about, like, Man United should not be 15th in the Premier League. You could win all three trophies, all other trophies, but if you're 15th in the Premier League, you've not had a good season. And that's on the manager and never on the players. Whereas in Spain and Madrid, it feels like a lot of the time is on the players. Like Jude Bellingham, for example, hasn't started well this season. Mbappe hasn't started well this season. And they just lost the El Clasico, got absolutely smacked. I haven't heard anyone talking about the manager, but I've heard a lot of people say Jude Bellingham's rubbish, Mbappe made a mistake, shouldn't have gone, all that kind of stuff. So I think, to answer your original question, there's probably two different weightings here. And the weighting for a manager, it's definitely harder to be a Man United manager because of the legacy of Sir Alex Ferguson and how long he was there and the success that he had, compared to Madrid, where you've got Ancelotti, you've got some legendary managers, don't get me wrong, but you remember the players at Madrid. You remember the Zidanes, you remember the Ronaldos. And I think that's where the difference comes in.
If you go back, you asked that question of who who won the most whatever trophies at Man United, probably the first name that would come off everyone's lips would be Ferguson. Before a player, you made that. You asked that about Real Madrid. It's never going to be Ancelotti or Zidane, the manager. I might say Zidane because they put the player and the manager together. That's a phenomenal point. You also got me thinking about player power, something we spoke about months back. But the player power seems significantly stronger at Manchester United, and I think that comes from the board. The board allow players to get away with a lot more shenanigans over the years, and that obviously takes away power from your managers, which ultimately culminates in the situation that they have now. One other point of Manchester United, I did want to kind of argue back a little bit against what you were saying is there's this narrative in a way that Manchester United haven't or don't really give their managers time, as in those managers, they come in and they not try their luck, so to speak, but we'll carry on with that term. They try their luck and then it doesn't work and they just get thrown out. If you look at the tenure of the average manager since Ferguson left, with the exception of Moyes, the average Manchester manager has got a 3-year stint before leaving. And that you can't say, oh, he needed more time. 3 years is plenty of time and they've all been supported financially. So it's been plenty of time to get your ideas across. I just wanted to add that in there because there's this narrative, oh, a lot of the managers haven't had enough time. The only one who didn't get enough time probably was Moyes. He was the one who had the hardest run of it. He was the one, funny enough, he might be an example where the shirt was too heavy in that scenario.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you. I think there's a lot of clubs who can be accused of not giving their managers time, but I don't think Man United at the moment can. With Solskjaer, and then we're now with Ten Hag, where they've been backed both financially and with the length of time. I mean, whether they got the players they exactly wanted is a different story, but at the end of the day, they both spent millions. They both got a couple of years to nail down their team, and it wasn't successful. So you can't really complain at that point in time. And I do tend to agree with you. I think Moyes is probably the only one where the weight of the shirt, and it's probably more the weight of Sir Alex Ferguson on the shirt, was far too big for him, unfortunately.
So just to round out, we've kind of agreed that Real Madrid and Manchester United have the heaviest shirt. But 3 clubs I just wanted to pick your brain on, like I say, to round out, is where do maybe you rank these 3 for me, you think heaviest to lightest shirt here. Bayern Munich, Juventus, or if you think a different Italian team is heavier than picking a top Italian team, and PSG. So PSG, Bayern, and a top Italian team. What's your ranking of heaviest to lightest shirt there?
I am going to rank them, but before we get into that super quickly, I just want to have a comment on Liverpool, because Liverpool is above all 3 of those teams. So I'm just going to put that out there. But I also think the nice thing you get with Liverpool, and why I wouldn't weight them as much as Real Madrid and Man United, is because their fan base is so much more positive around their players. They really want their players to succeed and they love their players. So if I had to go to a huge team and then I had to worry about the weight of the shirts, Liverpool would be the top choice for me. And then going back to the actual question you asked me, I would probably weight it as Bayern Munich is, for me, probably has the biggest weight on it, just because of their success in Europe, the time when Germany was running the Champions League, basically. Also, if you don't win the Bundesliga, it's seen as a massive failure. But beyond that, you're also expected to get to at least the semi-final of the Champions League, if not the final. Then it's probably PSG currently, and that's just because, again, they're expected to win the Liga, but because they haven't won the Champions League, no one really cares, to be honest. Outside of Paris, I should say. And then probably Juventus. The reason I put Juventus last is just based on the financial problems that they went through, getting relegated, coming back up. Historically, huge club, obviously a lot of weight around in that area, but no one really expects much from Juventus at the moment. And Paulo Dybala is probably a big example of this. He's had major expectations on him. He was supposed to be the next Messi, and he's kind of ended up being a bit of a middling player, really.
Yeah, no, we'll round it up there, but I just wanted to get that take from you. I did enjoy what you said, or agree with what you said about Liverpool. Probably of the heaviest shirts, Liverpool is the most enjoyable one to go to because their fans give those players more time and more positivity. And it's not just instantly, you know, you're bad basically if you have a few poor performances. It's more you'll get there, get the system going, etc. And maybe that's actually an argument of why Slot has started as well as he had, because he's had as much support. And even when they had a bad performance against Notts Forest, the fans didn't just instantly turn and say, "Yeah, I told you he wasn't going to work," or whatever. They've continued with him in occasional poor performances. Anyway, guys, this has been our discussion around the weight of the shirt. Let us know which team in the world you think has the heaviest shirt, physically or metaphorically. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, until next time, this has been Football Unspoken. Cheers.